Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. The USC commitment sweatshirt comes back on Sunday afternoon, and this is a monster. This is a kid we've talked about a lot over the last couple of weeks and months. Four-star linebacker, Talanoa Ili, committing to USC. To me, Dylan, I ain't much of a Marvel guy. This feels like that last Infinity Stone and the Marvel movies. I mean, you look at this 2026 cycle, if there was one more guy that Lincoln Riley and Chad Bowden were not going to leave the 2026 cycle without, it was going to be four-star linebacker Talanoa Ili. And Dill, I freaking love this kid. And what I'm so excited about for the next 10 to 15 minutes here is now we get to talk about this kid being in the 2026 cycle, turning on the film, talking about what he is going to mean to this USC defense over the next couple of years. The other thing I'll say here, Dale, Chad Bowden, Lincoln Riley putting the country on notice on the recruiting trail. I mean, hey, if we want a player, wherever that player is across the country, but specifically in the state of California and the West Coast, we ain't going to lose on him. You look at Mark Bowman, stuffing Georgia and Texas in a locker. You look at a guy like Kenny Pepe, going down to IMG. I know he's a West Coast kid, but IMG Academy beating out Miami. You look at Talanoa Ili. You look at Tom, beating programs like Oregon and Texas out for both of them. The USC has gone head to head for some of the best players in the country with, some of the premier programs across the sport all over the country, and they've won for the guys that they want. If Chad Bowden and Lincoln Riley want a guy on the recruiting trail, they have shown they can get anybody in the country. That's my biggest takeaway with what we've seen over the last couple of months. Fired up to get into Talanoa Ili. Before we get into it, as always, to the USC fans, I can't thank you guys enough. Specifically for this episode, we have talked about this kid countless times over the last couple of weeks and months in the amount of support y'all have shown the fellas as we're breaking down visit weekends, as we're breaking down commitments. I can't thank you guys enough. Appreciate y'all. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Dill, I know you, and I'm excited because you've watched a bunch of this kid, haven't necessarily shared your thoughts on this kid a ton. So I'm going to give you the T box here. What is USC getting in Talanoa Ili over the next couple of years here?
I think you're getting about as complete of a linebacker as
Yeah.
you'll see from high school ranks. And what really stands out for being a guy who's listed 6'3", 215,
Which is
maybe I'm with you. I don't know that I totally believe that when I look at the film. But regardless, plays like a really physical brand of football in between the tackles. And again, you kind of knew he had the range, the speed. That's obvious. It's kind of obvious, or table stakes for what you knew you were getting with him. But you look at what he does in between the tackles at the high school level, and how his understanding of how to take on blocks and use his length to keep guys off him and keep his outside shoulder free when he's got to be in a certain gap. Really, really good sense of how to play that position and play it really physically. And that's something I think USC is maybe even missing at times in that linebacker room, is just big physical linebackers who can also obviously move at the level you need to move at.
Yeah, that's what you said it best. The most complete linebacker in this 2026 cycle. I think you can make a very strong argument for that because you try to find a weakness in this kid's game and you really can't. The thing that stands out to me, and you mentioned it, devastatingly powerful kid. And when you talk about linebackers, normally you just go to, all right, how is he at the point of attack tackling? Yeah, he's a very good tackler. He hits people very, very hard. Yeah, 100%. But his ability to take on blocks is insane. Whether it's offensive lineman pulling play side, he will absolutely put them in the dirt. And then you look at the size, speed profile, and the range that he has. And it all comes together with the IQ. And when you're evaluating linebackers at the high school ranks, you're looking for all of those three things to come together. And it's very rare to find linebackers that check all of those boxes. They might be freaky athletes, but probably lack the football IQ, like a guy like Tackett Curtis. Tackett Curtis coming out of high school is like, holy smokes. Physically, this kid's about as gifted as it gets. The IQ just never seemed to be there. Then you have some linebackers that might have really good IQ, don't necessarily have the athletic profile you're looking for. Talanoa Ili, there's not a weakness in this kid's game at the off-ball linebacker position. And then the last thing I'll say here, he's a difference maker from that position as well. He can be a defensive chess piece very similar to how we talk about a guy like Eric Gentry. He can play out in space in that overhang linebacker role and drop back into coverage. He's very comfortable in coverage. He's also very good walking up to the line of scrimmage, coming after the passer off the edge. Very good at playing downhill and creating those negative plays as well. He checks all the boxes. He can be extremely creative in terms of how you use him, which Danton Lynn has showed us in the limited sample size we saw of Eric Gentry. I think you can use this kid in a very, very similar role because of the traits that he brings to the table. Dill, let's get into the film a little bit. And it's so fun to watch because the first two plays right off the bat really show you everything you need to know. You know, this first play right here is designed to attack Talanoa. You're trying to attack him here with this speed option here. And Dill, his ability to change direction and go get out in space and go run and chase, it's certainly there. Then the second play. This is what I love. I mean, you talk about the physicality, not only in terms of tackling, but we are having someone pull play side and trying to take us on, puts the kid in the dirt, and then gets out in space and goes and makes a tackle. Dill, I mean, you can't ask for more boxes to be checked in these first two plays.
And that completeness is the big one for him, especially in a position that I think USC's kind of noticed over the past couple of years is very hard. If you're not developing good linebackers from within your program, it's not an easy position to go find in the portal because Easton Mascarenas-Arnold, he was like one of the top guys in the portal available. And you look like there's a different level between him and probably what you're getting with a guy like Eric Gentry and what hopefully you'll get with guys like Desmond Stevens and Talanoa Ili. So this is a position, I think you said it, when we're talking like Infinity Stones and getting these guys into the class or filling out the class in a way that you want to, that linebacker spot, I think you knew was going to be huge. And now that they kind of have their cornerstone in that room, I think it's going to be big just for like the trajectory where this program is hoping to go.
Yeah, and they're so important in Dan Lynn's defense, like the impact that Eric Gentry had, and then what this USD defense looked like when he was on the field and when he was off the field.
It's huge.
It's huge. Look at this. I mean, we're going to line him up out there on the boundary. We're going to walk him into the line of scrimmage. Dale, this first step off the line of scrimmage, elite. This tackle doesn't have a chance. And then the quarterback ends up giving it to the back here, change of direction to still go make a tackle on the running back. I mean, he would either had a strip sack there, and he creates a tackle for a loss on the handoff. The change of direction for a kid this big, incredible. How about playing downhill and just beating offensive linemen to the spot and beating running backs to the spot? This is a guy that, Dill, there's a difference, right? When you look at these linebackers, you'll see those linebackers that go for 110 tackles and then they'll have like 4 tackles for a loss, 1 sack. They're good linebackers, but they're not difference makers. You look at Talanoa Ili, and he's like, this kid he has the ability to be a difference maker. He has the ability to be what Eric Gentry is. You know, a guy that goes for 100 tackles, but also goes for 12 to 15 tackles for a loss and probably 5 to 7 sacks, because his ability to get downhill and get behind the line of scrimmage is some next level stuff. I love the instincts too, like his ability to pick through traffic and find the ball carrier. I think also very elite. We could go for a long time watching the film, but I want to pull up this class. I mean, if you told Chad Bowden, hey, this is the class that you're signing on in December on signing day, I think he'd be fired up. The thing that stands out to me is, one, you got a couple more names on the board that we're going to talk about, but more importantly, Dill, we talk about this all the time in terms of roster building. Hey, especially in the Big Ten, what are the positions that you have to get right? It's the line of scrimmage. Look at all the names highlighted in red. And I think what should fire USC fans up is you have the best defensive line class in the country coming in 2026. And now you have a freak show at linebacker that's only going to be enhanced because he's playing behind the defensive line for the next couple of years. That is going to be dominant. It eerily reminds me of like that Georgia defense in 2020 and 2021, where they had dominant defensive line play, but they also had the off-ball linebackers that, when they're kept free because of the defensive line, are making a massive impact on the football game.
And you look, I mean, there's just not any positions that you don't really feel good about, aside from maybe safety. That's probably the one more position.
Agreed.
You're looking, if you could hit a big target, I don't even really see what else is left. I mean, obviously, like if Booby Feaster is willing to commit to USC, he's clearly a take. He is obviously that type of player. And USC is clearly going to have a shot at him, but like with or without him, you feel really good about the wide receiver class. You feel great about both lines of scrimmage. Now you feel really good about linebacker, which frankly was going to be one of the more important position groups for this cycle for USC. If they hit the safety class now with one more commitment, I don't even know where else you go. I don't know.
I wonder. So I wonder how it's going to look. You know, we talked about it with Mark Bowman. We talked about it with Kenny Pepe. We talked about it with Tom. We talked about it with Talanoa Ili. Does Jet Washington become another guy that's like, hey, we ain't going to leave 2026 without him? I don't think you could say that up until this point, but he's that last name where it's like, all right, maybe if there's one more Infinity Stone to be had, it's probably going to be Jet Washington at that safety position. I'm very, very curious to see how that plays out, where I think USC probably has some ground to make up there with teams like Oregon and Alabama. But if they decide to put the pressure on them, similar to what they did with Mark Bowman and Kenny Pepe and Ili and Tom, I wonder if USC can get it done with Jet Washington. He's probably the guy that, hey, if there was one more guy you want to land, it's probably Jet. Dill, I keep an eye on these two too. Luke Waffle, KJ Ford. I think they want to add one more guy on the edge. And it could be even Trenton Henderson, who I believe is going to be on campus next weekend. I mean, there's that one more piece at the line of scrimmage, too, that Chad Bowden is going to look to do. And Chad Bowden, if there's one thing we've learned from this guy, he's going to stop at nothing to establish the line of scrimmage. And so we'll see where USC goes from here. You got a class in 2026 that if you landed nobody else until December, and that's the last thing, Dill. I know the Chad Bowden no visit policy is frustrating to some USC fans at times. The guys that you see highlighted in red, they're not going anywhere. They're locked into USC. They're going to be signing their papers in December. So you know which 2026 class is going to look like. It's going to be damn good. Can we go out and land maybe 1-2 more guys, put the gravy on top, the cherry on top of the sundae? We'll see. Massive, massive get. This kid is so freaking fun. USC, they ain't playing games. We'll close it out there. Appreciate you guys. Hey, happy Father's Day as well. Appreciate you guys taking some time on your Sunday afternoon to listen to boys talk some USC football. Ain't nothing we'd rather be doing. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.